Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Laura Falcon. She is the volunteer coordinator with the Morgan County Homeless Coalition. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What is the coalition?
The coalition is to provide a cold weather shelter for anyone who needs it. Sometimes we have permanent homeless, sometimes we have temporary homeless people. So it's a temporary shelter in the months of December, January, and February. And it runs from 6 o'clock in the evening till 7 o'clock the following morning, and we take people in, we feed them, and we give them a place to stay. It is a temporary shelter, eventually.
It started this past December, last month.
Yes, December 2nd was our official first date of the shelter being open.
Who started it?
Well, the clergy really got together. There were 4 main clergy members, Pastor Phil King, Pastor Dick Vuhar, Pastor Lloyd McCanna, and Pastor Doug Hoffman. They really came together and saw the need. The clergy really are the ones who were getting the phone calls from the people that were desperate in need of shelter in these really cold times. And they would be able to put them up for a night or two, but they couldn't really take care of them on any extended basis. They just didn't have the funds for it. So they saw the need for a homeless shelter in the county.
What kind of homeless problem do we have in Morgan County?
Well, the numbers have varied from about 3 to 5 people in the shelter per evening, and that fluctuates. Like I said, some people have shown up because they temporarily lost their housing and they only needed to use the shelter just for a few days, and then we've had a couple people that have been there since we've opened the shelter and using it really on a full-time basis.
And is it fair to say that that's the extent of the homeless problem in Morgan County? There's only 3 to 5 people who don't have a shelter?
That's what we've seen so far. It is our first year, so we don't know. Maybe there's some people out there that don't even know about it or don't know that it's there. And like I said, there's so many different circumstances that can happen to people that they maybe need to use the shelter that we don't know. We don't know if this number is going to rise. But it's been sort of fluctuating between that 3 and 5. And as far as we're concerned, getting one person off the street is worth it to have the shelter open.
Now, there's not one shelter. How exactly does it work?
Yes, it is a rotating shelter. It rotates weekly. It runs from Saturday to Friday. And we have 4 churches involved with this rotation. Berkeley Baptist Church, St. Paul de Vincent Catholic Church, Trinity Asbury Methodist Church here in town, and then Hancock United Methodist Church has offered their space for us too. And Berkeley Baptist was so kind. When we started the shelter, we did not have transportation. Berkeley Baptist is a couple miles out of town, and of course Hancock we know is about 6 miles down the road, and Berkeley Baptist saw the need, and they've been using their vans to now transport. We have a meeting spot in town right in front of the sheriff's office at 545 is pickup. And if the shelters are in Berkeley Baptist or Hancock, we provide the transportation now. Berkeley Baptist is.
And if a homeless person goes to a shelter, what happens when you go to the shelter?
Okay,
so is this the basement of the church? Is this what usually it is?
They're all providing different spaces, not necessarily basements. Berkeley Baptist, it's part of their gymnasium, and they have a couple rooms in there. They have a kitchen. St. Vincent de Paul, it's sort of like the house that's attached to the church, and they have a wonderful facility that, again, has a kitchen and space for people to sleep. It's where the church thought it would be best to house the people. We've tried to do it where we have access to the kitchen because we do have volunteers bringing dinner in every night, and it's nice to have the kitchen there to be able to serve the food. So it's worked out beautifully. We have now rotated through all 4 churches, and it's been a wonderful experience at each and every one.
And so it's one church 1 week, Monday through Sunday?
It's actually Saturday through Friday.
Saturday through Friday.
So we have a trailer. Greenwood United Methodist Church let us borrow their trailer. So we keep all of our supplies in the trailer for moving. Of course, they go into the shelter for the week, when we're at that particular church. But then on Saturday, we load up the trailer, and then we move the trailer to the next church, and we unload for that week. So it's been nice to be able to have this trailer because we keep supplies on it, and it sort of it travels with us where we go.
And you get a warm place to stay, a meal, hot
Yes.
meal, or 2 hot meals?
Actually, you get a hot dinner. We have the volunteers bringing in dinner, and then the coalition is providing breakfast. So we have cereal, we have bagels and cream cheese, we have breakfast bars, things that they want to take some with them. They can do that. So they are provided the dinner and then the breakfast the following morning.
And then you also provide what you call a hygiene kit?
Yes, we have hygiene kits. We do, which provides, basic needs like toothpaste, toothbrush, deodorant. We provide razors, if people need razors. They come with a washcloth, soap. I think that's pretty much it.
And this is a volunteer effort.
It's all volunteer basis.
And how did you get involved?
Well, I got involved because I actually saw it in the bulletin in our church that they had started a homeless coalition. This is when they were just doing the meetings. They hadn't actually started the shelter, but the idea was in progress. And I thought, wow, because when I moved here about 3 years ago, I actually called about the homeless shelter because I wanted to get involved in the community, and I thought that would be a great way. And I was sad when I saw there was no type of homeless shelter here. So when I saw that in the church bulletin, I was like, oh my gosh, there's my opportunity. So I guess in March 2017, I attended my first meeting. They originally got together in October 2016. That's when the first meeting happened, and then it just sort of built over that whole next year, and more people got involved, and we made it happen.
What church are you with?
I'm with Mount Olivet United Methodist Church, out off of 13 Winchester Grade Road.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your work here in Morgan County? What brought you here?
What brought us here is my husband and I we lived over in Jefferson County in Harpers Ferry for many years, and we were up in the mountain, and we were just looking for a different place to live, different landscape, wanted to get a garden going, and we wanted to move a little further west. It was getting busy out that way. So we found Berkeley Springs and just fell in love, and we're so happy we moved.
And what is your work here? What do you do?
I'm a massage therapist, and I'm also a yoga instructor. I teach here at the Ice House a couple days a week.
Now, when you said that the ministers were getting calls, these were calls from people who were concerned that they were homeless out in the cold and with no place to go.
Correct.
And you're the volunteer coordinator, so you actually you have some insight as to how this happens. What is causing, whatever the homelessness issue is here, what's generally a cause of it?
There's different causes. There's different scenarios that happen in people's lives. Sometimes it's due to addiction. Sometimes, people just simply don't have the resources to provide for themselves for whatever reason. And then we're also finding this where people come across these circumstances where they become homeless, didn't think it was going to happen. A lot of people live one paycheck away from becoming homeless. So that, somebody ends up in the hospital and you've got all these medical bills. I mean, we've seen different scenarios like that where people have come home and they're kicked out of their place and they have no place to live. So sometimes they need to find some temporary housing through the shelter rather than trying to live in their car or on the streets for that matter, particularly in this cold weather.
Yeah, and it's been bitterly cold the last couple of weeks. Has this effort saved lives? I mean, you would think that how could anybody survive in this cold? It's been below zero a couple days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would venture to say yes, it has saved lives. I don't know. I think any of us that have walked outside for 5 minutes in the past couple of weeks, wonder how any person or animal, for that matter, could survive.
And what happens in the morning when the shelter has to close? Because you give people breakfast.
Yes.
But then it closes, and what are you thinking when people are going back out into the cold?
It's heartbreaking, to be honest with you. We only have enough volunteers to provide means to shelter overnight. So to turn people back out on the street when it's still 10 degrees out, has been really hard on us. Harder on them, of course, but it's not something that we want to do, but we just don't have the resources right now to have a full-time shelter. Eventually, we would love to work towards that. But volunteers, we need the volunteers.
Where are the volunteers coming from right now?
So volunteers are coming through the churches, just some concerned citizens, people that have heard about it, looking for a way to get involved in the community and reaching out. We really have a need for the overnight volunteers. Each night we provide 2 volunteers to stay overnight with the guests. It's a male and a female volunteer, and there's still a great need for that. Our resources are thin. We're making it happen, right. But if we could get more people involved, that would be great.
What if you don't have a man and a woman volunteer for any given night? What happens?
Well, the regulation right now, we are putting them up in the Berkeley Springs Hotel. Perfect example today with this ice storm coming in. We did have to cancel the shelter program for this evening, so the guests that would normally be at the shelter will be put up in the Berkeley Springs Hotel, and that comes from the coalition taking care of that need. But we're really trying to keep the shelter system in place as much as possible because our funds are limited as well. Yeah. But yeah, that's what we do. If we have a volunteer that cancels out last minute, we can't find coverage, we're not just going to leave them on the street. We will be able to put them up for the evening.
What about families, if there are younger children? How does that work?
Good question. Actually, our shelter is only taking 18 and over. There are other resources in this town that can help families and children. And actually, a couple weeks ago, the coalition did put up a family for a couple evenings that found themselves without a home. And so we put them up a couple nights until they could get to the DHHR and get some resources to help them out. So, we're not going to leave anybody stranded, but there are other resources to help the women and the children.
What's the issue with the children? Why is it more difficult with children or not possible? Is that a regulation?
Well, it becomes more involved because the volunteers would have to have background checks and it would become much more involved for the volunteers because we're dealing with minors. Mm-hmm. So because we had other resources for the minors and the women, we decided that, we were afraid it would maybe chase volunteers off, So we've decided to do it this way for now, just 18 and older. But again, we'll make sure people find where they need to go and are taken care of. If they come to the shelter, they're not just going to simply get turned away. Right. We have phone calls we can make and resources to make sure they're taken care of for the evening.
There are other homeless shelters in the Eastern Panhandle.
Yes.
Tell us about those, and was this modeled after any of those?
It was. We actually modeled our program after Jefferson County, West Virginia. They as well have a rotating church schedule where they go from week to week to different churches. And their program, they have a 5-month program. Theirs runs November, December, January, February, and March. But it is only an overnight shelter. It's not a full-time 24-hour. So we really did model after them. We got in contact with the chair there and had asked many questions, and they helped us out a lot with figuring out how to get the ball rolling.
There was some voiced opposition to the idea of a shelter in Morgan County. What was that about? What was that based on?
Well, I think the main concern there was they were worried, the opposition, I guess, was worried about people coming in from different areas to the homeless shelter and then panhandling on the streets. We're really such a small town. We didn't foresee that happening. It hasn't happened to this point. So if that did happen, we would certainly address it. But at this point, we haven't had any issues with that. But that was the basic opposition. They were just worried it was going to pull people in from other places, and then during the day they'd just be left on the street to panhandle. Or sort of hang out on the doorsteps of the businesses, and they were concerned, with the tourism being such a big part of our town. Right. And our economy in this town, So we want to hear, if anybody has concerns, we're totally open to hearing any of these concerns and addressing them. But again, that has not been an issue that we've needed to address. So we're just moving forward.
Were you surprised by the fact that there is homelessness in Morgan County? Were you surprised by that?
At first when I found out, I guess I was. But maybe I was a little naive, to be honest with you, because I think there's potential for homelessness in any town. And now that I've been exposed to it more so, I can see it. I have more of an understanding about it. But yes, at first I was surprised.
As a volunteer coordinator, your job is to get volunteers to help.
Correct. And I do the scheduling. So people contact me to coordinate all the scheduling.
Now, people watching this, if they want to volunteer, how would they get in touch with the Morgan County Homeless Coalition?
Okay, the best way is to go to our website.
So if you type in Morgan County Homeless Coalition into Google, it comes up.
Correct.
Yes.
It could be that easy as well. And there, right on the homepage, there's a button for volunteers. If you're interested in volunteering, you can hit right on that button. It'll pull the application up. You can fill it out right online, hit submit, and I will get your application and be in touch with you.
As the volunteer coordinator, have you also volunteered?
I have. I've been involved with all different aspects, from overnight volunteer to transportation. The first couple weeks getting the shelter going was very tricky because it was the first time that we were experiencing everything. Yeah. So I tried to be very involved in that first couple of weeks. We were training all the new volunteers to do check-in for the first time, checking our guests in and how that process works. And we had questions that were coming up, things that we hadn't thought about that were coming up that needed to be addressed. We have been meeting every 2 weeks at starting points, the Homeless Coalition, the board, we have a board. And it's also open to everybody. It's not just for the board, it's for the public too. So any of these questions that came up, we've been able to address them, deal with them, and things are running pretty smoothly now.
What have you, from your interactions with homeless people in Morgan County, what have you learned about them and about homelessness?
Well, I've learned that, circumstances in life can be tough. It's made me very grateful myself because you see there's so many different issues and problems that come up, whether it be family problems, things from their youth. You've got people that have been in the military and experienced, some horrible things and have had trouble getting back on their feet. There's just many different scenarios that could end people in that position.
Has the Morgan County Commission or elected representatives, have they been responsive at all to this problem that you know of?
I believe people are on board with us. They're supportive of what we're doing.
And there's a lot of churches also in Morgan County, but you're saying this is being driven by 4 churches primarily?
4 churches, but we are, if anybody else, any other churches would like to open up their doors so we don't have to keep asking the same churches to do it, because they end up doing it, at least 3 times, maybe 3 to 4 times with the rotation. So if there are any other churches out there that would like to open up their doors and help us, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and so it's just 3 months, December, January, February. It's, the primary need is volunteers.
Volunteers, yes.
But also, if people want to make financial donations, they can go to the same website.
Correct.
And learn, because in the case where volunteers don't show up, the motel, and there's a bill there that people have to pay. Absolutely. And the motel has been cooperating?
Yes, they've been wonderful.
Okay.
Yes, they've really been wonderful to work with.
All right, so it's going to continue to be cold for a while, January, February. Morgan County Homeless Coalition on the web, find it, type it into Google.
Yes.
And then the need is for people watching this, the need is for volunteers, donations, and if any other churches want to get involved, get in touch.
Correct. And also, if anybody just has questions, we do have an email at morgancountyhc.gmail.com. So if you just have questions, feel free, we will get back to you and answer any questions you might have.
And it's a good website, so people can get contact information there and get in touch with you through the website.
Through the website, yes. There's all kinds of great information on the website. There's on that homepage, there's the volunteer button and the donate button. So you can do either, but there's also further, if you dig on the web there, the web page, you'll find our mission statement, what we're all about, and different resources, and frequently asked questions are on there too. So we tried to make it very user-friendly and helpful to give people the information.
And thank you so much for your work and your volunteering on this.
Happy to do it. Thanks
Nice
for having
meeting
me.
Nice meeting you. Again, Morgan County Homeless Coalition. Until next week, I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber.